Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about industrialization as part of our Spain beginner tutorial playthrough, where we are showing every single game action we take and explaining stuff with a more beginner sort of slant in mind. Now, for industrialization, we have several long sort of theoretical videos on it where we talk about, kind of some of the math and some of the more intricate parts. This will be a more practical approach, and we will be focused on that for this episode. As for each of these, we have been focused on a particular aspect of the game. This will be industrialization, which is namely kind of the movement from being oriented towards getting rid of peasants as quickly as you can, towards being oriented to making your workers as efficient per worker as you possibly can through automation, and we think of this as a process of industrialization. Now, first things first, you want to ABC, always be constructing, and one of the reasons why our auto queue has failed us is because the states where we have auto queue kind of sort of set up, they have run out of population, and if you have places that are not fully employed, they will not auto expand, and so this is why we are no longer auto expanding in a place like Castile and also Asturias, where we had set up these auto expands. So now we need a little bit of a different strategy. For now, what we will do to free up some labor just real quick in these areas, we will turn on water tube boiler, which is a labor saving PM, which we have noted you don't want to turn on in the early game as long as you still have peasants, but we don't have peasants locally in the state. We are in fact at a turning point where about half of our states, or maybe a quarter of our states, are out of peasants, and so in these states doing this will be good because it will free up the population to be employed up, and these pops will get employed up, and these things will start auto expanding again. Now, we still want to make sure our construction queue is filled because we want to keep these prices high, and also we want to make use of the construction, but your economy will depress if you let your construction queue idle. These industries will make less money. As they make less money, the people who own the industries will buy less consumer goods. This makes the consumer goods economies make less money, and it will slowly cripple your economy. So you do want to ABC, always be constructing. We know from a macro perspective that we will want to fight the United States soon, probably over seeking Portugal, so we'll also end our defensive pact with Portugal. And what we will be doing in order to fill out our queue now, at least at the initial kind of outset, is we are just going to add for ourselves a whole bunch of military. Now, for this, we are going to come and search in domestic, and we are going to sort by the places where we have the most peasants, which will become a little bit more obvious why this is important later. We will go up to having a 50 stack navy once this becomes fully employed. This gentleman can only lead up to 30 guys, so we will promote him so he can lead more guys up to 60, and we will do the same with our normal army here, where we will recruit this up to 25 as well. That brings us up to 10, 20, 25 of line infantry, and we will want to do the same with artillery. We are again focused in Eastern Andalusia, where we are going to bring up to 25 there as well, and this will represent for us a 50 stack army and navy coming on in. Now, it is important to kind of discuss why depeasanting is so good. So the first and kind of more obvious reason why depeasanting is so good, I don't think we'll go for an alliance with Brazil. We're going to want one with Mexico for when we fight the USA in order to give ourselves a front. But the more obvious reason is the peasants are not very efficient per worker. You take a look at this, it's 130k workers. It's only producing a weekly balance of 1k. When we employ 5k peasants to, say, work in the logging camps, we have made them way more efficient, and in this sense we are transmuting our construction into value by shifting the peasants from working kind of their normal jobs into working other jobs, and so this is going to be good. But also there's another effect here. There's an effect where having labor saving PMs, turning these on, you think to yourself, hey, well, I'm not actually making this building less profitable, not really, because I'm decreasing the wages, but I'm creating buy orders for this. The buy orders stimulate this type of thing. And maybe these goods are cheaper than the labor that we're saving, so why don't we turn these on and make the industry more profitable? And in order to understand why you don't want to do this, without getting into too great a detail on the math, you have to understand that peasants are crypto bros. They buy fake goods with fake money. And so what you have with peasants in particular is going to be something that is known as subsistence output. So if we take a look at the peasants and we take a look at their wages are supporting a standard of living of 10. If we look at the weekly pop income, we will say, hey, wait, pump the brakes, they're only getting paid 481. What's going on? What's up with this? Well, what they are getting paid is subsistence output, and this is an in-game abstraction for the fact that the peasants, for the most part, historically, they were building their own furniture, they were mending their own clothes, they were growing their own food, they were not purchasing things from a market, instead they were subsisting based on what they were kind of outputting, and so this is the fake money we talk about. They still have a buy basket, they still buy the same basket of goods that anyone with 10 SOL would buy, at least in the case of these peasants, but they are buying it in a sense with fake money. Now, this kind of, at first blush, you think, oh, but then that's just a bunch of free money, right? A bunch of money that's going into buy orders in the economy that is not kind of being extracted in terms of the wages here, because the wages here are virtually nothing. But peasants have a very, very special modifier that's actually very kind of tedious to find in terms of the user interface. Normally, this is kind of the user interface when you join the census data. You have to parse over to the side, right one, and you will be able to see, when you hover over the green box in particular, this is going to see consumption factor is 2.57x multiplied by 0.05 towards peasants. So while peasants have the same buy basket of goods, only 5% of that buy basket is translated into buy orders for the thing. So if we take a look here, perhaps we will be able to see buy orders of pop needs. I don't know if we'll be able to see a breakdown here. We will be able to see a breakdown. So even though we have an enormous amount of peasants, the peasants of our 5K buy orders for grain are only informing 73. They would be informing 20 times this were it not for this 5% modifier. And so what this means is that peasants, relative to laborers, depress the economy because these buy orders aren't reaching the market. It's not increasing, like, let's say, in the case of the furniture manufacturer, it's not increasing the price, or the clothing manufacturer, it's not increasing the price of the basic clothing with the goods that they are having to pay for. And this lack of a more expensive price means we have fewer opportunities for profitable buildings with our basic clothing. So depeasanting is very, very, very good. That is moving people out from the peasants to doing literally anything else. And so in the early game, you in particular want to be focused on depeasanting. Why don't we add a whole bunch of stuff to the queue here that is really good at depeasanting? And when you are trying to depeasant, having a very, very cheap construction cost is particularly powerful. There's two industries that are really good, the logging camp and the fishing wharves, and also the whaling stations, but not a lot of people have those. To some extent, the agriculture works, but in general, you don't want to be agriculturally oriented because you don't want to lean into landowners, and there's a lot to unpack as to why. There's a lot of nuance, but what we're going to do here is we're going to sort by domestic, we're going to sort by peasants here, and every place with over 50k peasants, we're just going to fully expand out the logging camps. Now, you won't want to do this for every country, but we're trying to make sure our queue is nice and full, and we're going to do the same thing for the fisheries as well, which incidentally will help us to increase standard of living. Standard of living, notably, is going to help us to expand other things. But why don't we get some other auto expansions going in order to get rid of peasants, in particular, in the buy or in the places that we have a lot of peasants. So let's come in here, and the industries that are good to have auto expanding are going to be ones, in particular the consumer goods, because we will explain why. So we'll go into Bajos. Bajos is, here, let's come in. We do want to sort, we just know that Bajos is one of them, but the places where we have a lot of peasants are Bajos, Toledo, Valencia, and Eastern Andalusia. We're going to set up a few auto expands in each of these states. But with Bajos in particular, we look at the resources, and there's not a whole lot going on in the resources. So it's not like we have iron and we can build into tools and we will have a positive effect due to local prices where we are having both buy and sell orders for the same thing there. But with the case of clothing, these are often sourced. We are importing a majority of the goods that go into clothing anyways, so we're using market prices often anyways, rather than local production, and also often these prices get really depressed. They're also not very dependent on being locally sourced without going into the math on that. So clothing in particular is going to be a really good thing if you don't have any resources to set up an auto expand for it. So we're going to put up an auto expand for that. Furniture manufacturing is also going to be good in the same regard, and one of the reasons why is all the luxury consumer goods in particular, as you turn on the luxury PMs, they actually add workers. So even though this is a 600 cost building, it employs, instead of 5,000 workers or 5,000-ish, fish workers 6,000 workers once we turn all the PMs on. And so this is going to make it a little bit better at depeasanting marginally, and we can't really add many good 200 and 400 cost buildings here. So instead we're going to add the ones that are 600 cost, but add more available workers. We're going to do the same thing over here as well, where we are going to auto expand out the furniture and the textile mills. Another decent one is tools, because tools are just generally efficient. You need them almost everywhere in terms of buy orders going in, but we will leave those there for now. Now, we also see, hey, Valencia's got some mineral resources going on. And so what we're going to do with Valencia is we are going to get the tooling workshops going, the lead mines, all the mines going, and lead in particular feeds into glass quite well. So we'll get some glass going as well. And then we're going to switch the UI for just a second, because it's easier to put up auto expands in this section of the UI. And we are going to go steel mills, glass works, and all of the mines on auto expand in this place where we have a bunch of peasants. We'll kind of click back over to the old UI. And in Eastern Andalusia, it is on the coast, and on the coast in particular, food industries, they do have demand for fish, and so as a result, building where you have fish supply is going to be a little bit better, and food industries notably add a ton of extra workers per construction, and so or a ton of extra workers per level. I do think the food industries might be an 800 cost building, so it does cost a little bit more. No, it's 600. So on the coast where you have a lot of pops and you don't have good resources, it's going to be a decent place to put the food industry. So we'll put those on auto expand. We'll put the textile mills and the the furniture manufacturers also on auto expand. And so we will now have a little bit more stable of a queue that will operate a little bit better for our new considerations of being, or are kind of being more oriented towards depeasanting. We were focused on depeasanting in Castile, but we basically got rid of all the peasants. We got rid of all the peasants in Asturias, and so now we need to be a little bit oriented in a different way, which is we are trying to be as efficient per worker now, where we are trying to find more workers and do stuff like turn on the labor-saving PMs, because if you have peasants and you turn on a labor-saving PM, what you will do is you will fire the pops and they will become peasants. They will decrease in buy orders even if they have the exact same SOL. So if we kind of take a look at, we saw that SOL of 10, kind of peasant that was here in Valencia. If we take a look at all the population in Valencia, just very, very quickly, if we look at the laborers and we find another 10 SOL guy like this, these guys are laborers. They have the exact same buy basket of goods, but these guys, 20 times the value of their stuff will reach the market. So you don't want to turn laborers into peasants. But in the case of Castile here, we don't really have peasants. And in fact, the peasants that we do have are kind of frictional peasants. They're peasants that are waiting to be hired up into other jobs. And so when we turn on the labor-saving PMs in Castile here, what is going to happen is we are not turning guys into these 1,000 workers per level. We're not turning them into peasants. Instead, what we're turning them into is we are turning them into being employed in any of the other places that we have available employment. So other types of laborers. In the case of if we had kind of labor spots available in the tooling workshop, we would be turning them into machinists, engineers, or different types of laborers, shopkeepers. And what we would be doing here is we would actually be increasing our SOL. Almost every labor-saving PM decreases the amount of laborers you have and doesn't decrease other worker types. Laborers get paid the absolute least, so when you use labor-saving PMs, you get a more specialized and advanced workforce overall, which is going to raise SOL, which is going to help with migration attraction, which is going to allow you to pull in more migrants, because a big informer here is going to be your standard of living. And so this is going to allow you to hoover in more pops and attract them to Castile or to wherever it is that you are operating. And so in this way, you are going to want to turn on the labor-saving PMs. We have several places that are running out of workers, but what we're going to do is we are going to come in here, we're going to sort by peasants and look where has no peasants, and is also kind of one of these central places that's on Spain. And we see in particular Castile, Asturias, and Western Andalusia are in this basket. And so what we are going to do is we are going to turn on labor-saving PMs where we know they are available so that we can allow for extra workers. Now, I'm pretty sure we do not have a railway here, so it's going to be a little bit sensitive. So we will actually put in the railway here. And we will also do a similar thing over here in terms of we are going to turn on more and more of these rail transportations. We don't want to run a shortage. A shortage is bad, but as long as we're not running a shortage, we can be pretty aggressive with turning on labor-saving PMs. Notably, you see the transportation much cheaper in Asturias. A big reason why is Asturias, if we take a look here, has 9 financial districts. Here has 39 in Castile, so we have a lot of local consumption by the people owning the financial districts, the capitalists, the super rich guys. These guys eat a lot of transportation, so that's why it's harder for us to build up transport here. But when we kind of take a look here, what we are going to see is a combination of peasants now in these areas. We don't see peasants, but if we don't see peasants, they will be unemployed in these areas, and so we'll be working up on there. Another thing we're going to do in order to kind of smooth things or keep things a little bit smooth is at the front of the queue, in the places where we are going to be building up quite a lot, we are going to add a couple universities at the front. This will help to deal with unemployment, and we could also use a little bit of extra stuff. We are going to take a look at where we can expand. In particular, we want to be going after these areas. We don't want to get sided against, however, especially by Great Britain or France. Now, France doesn't have an interest in this HQ, but we see that Great Britain, in particular, would want to rumble with us, so we do have to be a little bit careful. We would love if New Granada joined against us. We want to subjugate New Granada real bad, so we're going to go for these guys. The reason why we want to go for New Granada is because we want to restore the Spanish Empire, but the reason we don't go directly for them is because they are a part of France's power block. France will defend them basically 100%, but if they side in against us, then we could go for them just fine because they're not a subject of France exactly. We get a little bit of an event here. We don't really like upper strata. Generally speaking, south end, generally we do, they must accept their lot because it's going to affect less people and cause less radicalism. And so we're now kind of operating in this dual fashion in Valencia, Toledo, Majos. We are being very conscious of, being efficient per construction, and then in Castile, Western Andalusia, and Asturias, we are trying to be very efficient per worker, turning on labor-saving PMs. It is very important to note, very important to note, you would rather be in the phase of the game where you have available peasants and you are de-peasanting, because every construction you use is going to be wildly more efficient when it is turning someone from a peasant into not a peasant than when it is turning you into being able to go from hand assembly to water tube boiler to save these extra workers to operate in another industry. And so we are going to want to expand out the workforce as much as possible. We do see New Granada has joined, and also El Salvador has joined. We're going to put in war reparations on we're going to put in war reparations on Honduras. We're going to make these primary, which makes Honduras less likely to back down, and then we are going to put protectorate on New Granada, and we are going to put in no additional war goals because we want to maximize the number of things that is primary here. They are very likely to back down in either case. We will get refunded a portion of the infamy, especially if they have the defending the border strategy, what these guys often do. I think conservative agenda might also be in that case. Maybe we get a war, but if we can get a war and we can subjugate New Granada, fantastic. This is exactly what we were looking for in terms of play pattern. We see that they are currently in the French power block. We'd love them to be, kind of returning to the bower or the bosom of being in kind of Spain here. We will certainly wait and see exactly how that shakes out before we end the episode. But we have talked about most of what we want to do in the industrialization. We do see we could get up to a little bit more authority, and we're going to put down a greener grass campaign. We're going to put it down in Catalonia, and we know we're actually a little overpopulated in Valencia. Valencia has a lot of resources, but Toledo and Eastern Andalusia are going to be maybe a little bit worse here for these things. So we're actually going to pull off the migration attraction here in those places. And instead, what we're going to do is we are going to put in road maintenance here in Valencia. Let's actually pull another greener grass off here, because again, we know that these places have a ton of peasants, and we are also going to encourage manufacturing here in Valencia, and we're going to start building tall out of Valencia now, as we were before. kind of in some other spots, we are starting to stack up a bunch of edicts there, which is going to allow us to build and be much more efficient in Valencia. Why don't we also put in we already put in a manufacturing decree. That's not what we're looking for. We are looking for our power block statue, which is going to be discounting a couple of these, which is going to be great for us. We're going to accelerate the speed a little bit here, but now, if we take a look at Valencia, these places will be getting additional throughput, which is going to help us to build tall. It's also going to, incidentally, increase the auto queue's desire to build here because it sees the buildings as being more profitable. We do get another company slot, and I think what we are going to do, if I recall, this actually might be a special company, but tools is probably going to be what we go for. The reason, kind of how you want to evaluate a lot of these is what proportion of your economy is this going to maybe be able to operate in, and you use a lot of overall net construction in tools. Tools is kind of the most attractive. The second next most attractive is probably the logging camps. I can get behind the logging camps. The logging camps is definitely better in the early game. We're going to be still building logging in our subjects, and we have a bunch of logging in the queue that this company can swoop on up. Let's go with it. I think eventually we do have the forestry conglomerate. It's better early, so we're just going to slot it in right now. I think I convinced myself here, but in particular, with investment rights on other people, it's going to be really nice. And it's going to be really nice when they apply their construction bonus and build these things up. We see that, hey, it does look like this war is going to go through. We will make sure to enforce on New Granada first, because if we take a look at the war goals, here's Spanish war reparation from Honduras. As long as that war goal is present, we cannot be enforced out of the war. So what we're going to do is we are going to merge. We can't be enforced out of the war unless they occupy us, which they're not going to occupy us. And so if we enforce on Honduras first, what will end up happening, this will be unfortunate for us, this means we will just be able to be ticks below zero. So this is why we are prioritizing going for New Granada first here, which is going to work out well for us. But I think that we are going to kind of look to wrap things up and summarize. We are going for a little bit more for next episode to be able to fight the USA, but very importantly, we talked about, trying to be more efficient per worker, trying to be more efficient per work, construction in the event that you still have peasants. We are running out of peasants. You prefer to have a lot of peasants available. In fact, you actually see the population ticking up from all of our migration kind of efforts to prolong this period where we're going to have peasants. But you're going to want to be really efficient per worker. Resources are just absolutely stellar. Fishing wharfs, logging camps are just absolutely insane. You will actually see a weird market effect where you can have really, really low prices of wood in the early game, and then when you run out of workers, the wood price gets high. That's because the logging camps are very efficient per construction, not very efficient per laborer, and so what will happen is if you run out of laborers, these will be one of the buildings that starts to lose employment because you would rather work, it's more efficient for the worker to work in a steel mill than in a logging camp. We're going to swap over this PM because I don't think we have enough of those. And so you will want to do this. As you start to run out of workers in an area, you will want to turn on labor-saving PMs, and we are also, in a bunch of these places, fighting for migration with a bunch of migration edicts in order to prolong the period of time before we have to turn on labor-saving PMs. Labor-saving PMs, notably, will make your workers more efficient and rich per worker, which in turn will allow you or help you to get more workers. And so this is going to be useful for you, and so will allow you to, it'll smooth everything out, but it is a very important. Floods are really bad. Kind of with that one point we're making is you do not want to turn on the labor-saving PMs, and this is the subtle part that's hard to understand. You don't want to turn on these labor-saving PMs if they're going to create peasants, because even if they makes the building more profitable, it will decrease the number of buy orders that are reaching the market. Even if this building gets more profitable, like let's say even if the laborers' wages were more expensive than the input goods cost here, what ends up happening is when you turn that off, you make textile mills less profitable because less peasant stuff reach the market. In fact, you notice the price of basic clothing seems to have gone up since we've depeasanted a whole bunch of pops over the course of this episode, because we now have a bunch of peasants where only 1/20th of their buy basket was reaching the market. Now the full 20x is, and now we've gotten basic clothing quite expensive. I think we are importing it in some spots, but also we just kind of wrap up real quick. I think this is the first flood we've seen, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Migration Attraction Edict. I think in Catalonia, these are the 3 states that are maybe the least important for us, and we're going to put down emergency relief. Flood is a really negative modifier. If we go into the lens and we look in harvest conditions, just kidding, it won't show up. Wait, what? Okay, here it is. We will see, I think that it was in Western Andalusia was where the epicenter is. It gives minus 29% MAPI, so that means local prices, or only pretty much, or much more. Increased good consumptions for peasants, which is, as far as I know, just makes it so the peasants need to eat more to maintain their buy basket, so peasants will tend to starve. Decreased infrastructure, this will make it harder to reach the market, and decreased throughput on basically everything. Notably, if you're less agrarian oriented, this affects you less. If you're importing these goods, getting negative events that affect agrarian stuff is one of the reasons why agrarianism is not good, although it's like kind of one of the more subtle ones. But what we are going to do is we are going to use this emergency relief decree, which gives extra food security, less tax collection, which allows our pops to maintain their standard of living better, and access market access price impact and infrastructure. And this will turn off as we restore kind of order over here, but we will get these down at least on a temporary basis. But that was kind of the quick and dirty on industrialization, as well as, I hope, some useful ways of looking at how to manage the auto expand, where we're being a little bit more pop oriented in some spots. We're looking to in particular expand out stuff that's very efficient per construction, like adding 10 lead mines is probably okay, considering how many peasants we have here, and the lead mines only cost 400 construction. But as you kind of shift and you get into like the later period of the game, the high construction cost buildings will get a lot better than they were in the early game. But I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube algorithm thing, and hopefully next episode we will be fighting the USA and getting our first kind of big boy, getting our hands dirty type of fight. Have a good one.